Everyone, this is Jeff Wilkerson, Professor of Physics at Luther College, bringing you the next in our series of what to look for in the night sky. This time we're talking about April 4th, 2022, the week thereof. So we got a lot of interesting stuff for you this week. We're going to talk about a variety of things. It's a fun week. Let's start in the morning sky with the planets. Last week, I tweeted out an image of a thin crescent moon with the planets in the sky. There's Venus and Saturn and Mars forming a sort of right triangle above the crescent moon in that image. You can go look for it right now. I'll wait for you. Go look for it. You should. If you don't see it on Twitter, you can find it on our website, luther.edu/astronomy, and look under the solar system tab right there, and you can find this image of the morning sky with the moon and these three planets. As we start this week, April 4th, the morning of April 4th, Saturn and Mars are going to be more or less right on top of each other. This is the star Deneb al-Gaidi, tail of the goat from the Arabic, and that star, Saturn has been near that star for a very long time, and so we've mentioned that star. That star has been a star for sure of our videos here for a year now, probably almost. Certainly going back to last fall, if not last summer, and maybe into the spring. So Saturn, Jupiter was in this region at that time. Now Mars is there. And this is a great week. If you have clear skies every morning, there's just no reason to not get up and look at this movement of the planets this week. This is a fantastic week. If you ever doubted that it was relatively easy to see the planets move relative to one another and relative to the background stars like Deneb al-Gaidi, then this is the week that should be able to throw all of that aside. Because this is on the morning of the 4th, so this is early morning before sunrise on the 4th, Mars and Saturn are in conjunction. They're right on top of each other. Really, really close. By a few days later, so Mars is moving relatively rapidly this direction. Venus is out here. So you can find Saturn and Mars, Deneb al-Gaidi and Venus making this nice grouping. As the week moves on, Venus is sliding out that direction. So that's the first thing you should be able to notice is Venus moving off away from this grouping, and Mars is following it. So by 3 days later, on the morning of the 7th, Mars is more or less directly above Deneb al-Gaidi, and they form, so that's Mars, that's Saturn, and that's Deneb al-Gaidi. They form just a beautiful little triangle. Wait 2 days, and Mars will have slipped noticeably out this direction past the star. And so you can really see Mars starting right on top of Saturn as really close, really beautiful pairing on the 4th. By the 9th, 5 days later, not very long at all, folks, 5 days later, Mars will have slipped very much noticeably this direction, and Venus is way off here. So enjoy the planets in the morning sky this week. It's really worth the look. I hope you have clear skies. I hope we have clear skies. We've had very, very few clear skies in the mornings lately. I like to send out pictures. I like to post pictures of the sunrise, but there's almost nothing to post because it's just cloudy, cloudy, cloudy. But maybe next week, maybe this week ahead, the next week in front of us here, we'll be able to see this moving on. Now, in the evening sky, let's go try to learn something, a new star. Let's try to find a new constellation and a new star we haven't talked about before. So let's start with Castor and Pollux. Maybe you can find the twin stars. It's just after dark now. This is just before sunrise. Now it's just after dark. Good for a couple hours, a few hours after dark if you don't want to get out right after dark. But just a little while after dark, you've got the twin stars Castor and Pollux here. First of all, let's just note that on the evening of the 8th, so we're talking about Friday, that is, and the evening of the 9th, Saturday, the moon will be about half full and will slide through Gemini. This is Gemini here, stretching down this direction, and will slide past these stars. So it's going to move from the west of Castor and Pollux to the east of Castor and Pollux as it fills out from just below half full to just above half full. Worth watching on the nights, the evenings of the 8th and the 9th, just after sunset. So that's Gemini here. Now, behind Gemini over here, we have Cancer in this region, a faint constellation. And we often look at the triangle tail of Leo. So this is Leo out here. And we have the backward question mark or sickle shape of the head of Leo. Bright stars Regulus and Danabola here. And so we see these, we see Gemini and Leo, and maybe we know these constellations, maybe we've learned these constellations. What we want to look at right now is if you follow the sickle shape of Leo up this direction, you'll come to a star that's up here. So here's what I would do. I would say, okay, here's the base of the sickle right here is about this distance. Move that same distance and maybe 50% again up this direction, and you'll find the brightest star in the region. It's not very bright. It's a third magnitude star. Remember, the magnitude, we say this every week. You're tired of it. You're sick of it, and yet you still keep watching. I know you don't keep watching. Never mind. But every week we talk about this. The magnitude system counts backward. Every step in magnitude is a factor of 2.5 in brightness. This is about a 3.1 magnitude star. So it's a star that's relatively easy to see if you have dark skies. If you got some light pollution or you got the moon too close like this, it gets harder and harder to see. But it's relatively easy to see, but it certainly doesn't pop out. It's not something that jumps out and you say, wow, look at that beautiful bright star, like Castor and Pollux and Regulus and Danabola, or really all of the constellation of Leo. This would be one of the fainter stars in the constellations of Leo, in the bright asterisms, let me say it that way. In the bright asterisms, the bright star patterns that we recognize in the constellations of Gemini and Leo. So this 3.1, but this is the alpha star of the constellation Lynx. Most people, I'm going to wager, haven't ever seen the constellation Lynx and haven't ever thought about the constellation Lynx. And Lynx is a long string of stars that stretches up this direction, and they're all fainter. This is the alpha star, it's the brightest star, they're all fainter than this. So it's kind of a difficult constellation to see, but give it a try. Find alpha, and then drift off to the north and the west and see if you can find a string of stars that are fainter, maybe 4th magnitude, 5th magnitude stars out this direction. Use your binoculars to track up that direction and say, okay, I've made an effort to try to understand the constellation of Lynx just a little bit. You know, we always, if you watch these videos, we always refer to Allen's star names to help us understand the history of the names of the stars. And I looked to see, I didn't know a name for this star at all. And I looked to see what Allen would say about that. And he said that probably there was no name for it. This was an unnamed star except in China. So in the rest of the world, there wasn't a name, but there was definitely a named star for Chinese astronomers, Yang Moon, South Gate. So that would be the name. As far as I could tell, there wasn't any evidence of names outside of China. So that's going to often be the case, actually. There's going to be a lot of Chinese names for some of these groupings of stars that we don't have names for in other parts of the world that we don't see in any other part of the history of astronomy there. So anyway, that's what we know about the name of that star from Allen. One other idea. If you look at Castor and Pollux up this direction, and across from Lynx this direction, you come to a globular star cluster. And remember, the globular star clusters are centered around. There's these big groupings of hundreds of thousands of stars centered around the center of our galaxy. Most of them, over half of them, are in the constellations of Ophiuchus, Sagittarius, and Scorpius. They're directly toward the center of our galaxy. But there are some that are out there far away from those constellations, and this is one of them, NGC 2419. And it is one you can find. So if you look at a star chart, if you've got a small telescope, it's worth trying to see this. And it's technically in the constellation Lynx. Constellations, recall, we have the bright asterisms, or the not bright asterism of Lynx. We have the pattern of the stars on the sky, but the constellation is a grid that we have overlaid that. So the constellation actually has sort of squared off borders so that every object is in a constellation. And Lynx stretches down this direction toward Gemini. And it's a little closer to Castor and Pollux than it is to Alpha Lynx up here. But this stretches down. Lynx stretches down this way, and NGC 2419 then is in the constellation of Lynx. It's the globular cluster. One of the things that's interesting about this globular cluster, it is the most distant known globular cluster that is still considered to at least probably be a member of the Milky Way. We see globular clusters around the centers of other spiral galaxies, other nearby spiral galaxies. We can see well enough to see their globular cluster population, but this is the one that appears to be associated with the Milky Way, but it's not very close to the Milky Way, and it is often called the intergalactic wanderer because it might actually be out there in intergalactic space, but it would be a better description of this. So this very distant small globular cluster is worth the look if you've got a small telescope and you want to see something interesting for the sake of seeing something interesting. That's what we got for you this week. Go out, learn the constellation Lynx just a little bit. See if you can find the alpha star, young moon, and use Leo and Gemini as a guide to it. Watch the moon at the end of the week. Watch the moon sliding past Gemini as it fills out. If you want to, go out and try to find this very distant globular cluster in the morning sky. If you're going to do one thing this week, watch the planets in the morning sky. On the 4th, look at the beautiful pairing of Saturn and Mars and watch that spread separate. Watch the Saturn and Mars move apart. Mars is the one that we see doing the moving, and see that open up as the week moves on. So have a great week, everybody. I hope you have clear skies, and I hope you have a chance to get out and observe some of this. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll have something new for you next week.